Alex here with a perspectives video on trial experience, joined by attorney and candidate for Department 21 of the Eighth Judicial District Court, Cesar Almase. Before we get started, I'd just like to let everyone know that we're doing the best we can to proceed with the remote interviews during the coronavirus pandemic. Okay, we are here with Cesar Almase, candidate for Department 21 of the 8th Judicial District Court. Why don't you let us know a little bit about you and your candidacy for Department 21?
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for having me. And I appreciate you folks putting this program together. I've been practicing for 18 years, all here in Clark County. I'm a criminal defense attorney. And, I think one thing that distinguishes me in my race is that I have extensive trial experience. I can't speak as to my opponents, exactly the number of trials that they've had. But given that I'm in court every day and have been practicing criminal defense for 18 years, I think it's safe to say that I've had more trials than the three of them. The other thing that I bring to the table is my love of people and my sense of service to others. I am very involved in the community. I've been volunteering my time with Empower, which is a political organization that's designed to empower local Filipinos and get them more involved in the political process. I volunteer my time and I'm legal counsel to Finland Vets, which is a veterans organization here in Nevada that has a lot of members, but focuses primarily on Filipino Americans who've served. I was also involved with an organization over the last few years called Shine Family Foundation. This is also an organization that helps veterans. I myself didn't serve, but I have my brother who served for 27 years in the Navy, as well as my nephew who served for 6 years. Um, I think that right now, given the medical crisis that we're all facing, it's important to stay engaged and help whenever you can.
Right. So one of the things that you mentioned was your connections to a veterans organization. I get a lot of questions on Veterans Court, but not many candidates know a whole lot about it. Is that something that you interact with in your day-to-day as an attorney?
Yes, it is. I've had a lot of clients who I've referred to Veterans Court. It's a great program that Judge Letitia has been heading up, and I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see more funds for Veterans Court as well as other specialty court programs, drug court, mental health court. These are areas that we could definitely improve on.
Okay, how people wonder, and they really ask me a lot of technical questions. What exactly happens when somebody moves from the ordinary regular court system into something like mental health court or veterans court? Because I really don't know how to answer their question. And some people think it's a diversion. Other people think it's just a special type of court where judges understand their problem. And I really don't know. Do you have any insight on specialty courts in general?
Well, in general, they're designed to assist people and get them over the issues that they're facing. Mental health court, obviously, there's a mental health component, and that addresses people with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, diagnosed psychological issues. And through a mental health court, and it's oftentimes a component of probation. So, as an alternative to incarceration, a person will be sent to mental health court. They'll get counseling. They'll be required to stay on their medication if they're on their medication and to keep their appointments with the service providers. And if they successfully complete it, then the case will be closed and they will avoid incarceration. Same thing with the Veterans Court. A lot of veterans are facing substance abuse problems, feelings of suicide, and the Veterans Court does a really good job at addressing those issues.
So I guess one of the advantages of trial experience is understanding, I suppose, the impact legal errors have on, I guess, the entire machine, the victims, the parties. And we had another candidate not running against you. She was a public defender, Christy Craig, who talked a little bit about legal error and the death penalty case and stuff like that. What would you say? I mean, would you say there's a problem there, or go ahead and elaborate a little bit on, maybe what legal error is and how much it may have affected you and your cases. Maybe it's not an issue at all. I really don't know. Kind of open-ended for you.
Okay. Well, as far as legal error, um, cases where the trial court has been reversed based on some mistake that was made below in district court is something that happens with some frequency, some judges more than others. I can't say who leads the way or who has the least number of reversed cases. However, I think that there's a saying in the law that reasonable minds can differ as far as an issue goes, how it's resolved. But it's important to have a person who has trial experience, because district court is the trial court that we have here in Nevada. So I'm familiar with the rules of evidence, issues that come up repeatedly through trial. And these things can come up a drop of a hat, really. Trials are very fluid, and given the dynamics, an issue can come up, an objection can be raised, and as the trial court judge, you need to be prepared to make a ruling quickly. And so a lot of the times, if you have a trial judge who doesn't have a lot of trial experience, that creates obviously some issues.
I don't know if you know that we provide statistical analysis on the judiciary with regards to how often they're overturned. We keep them on the website. The other thing we do is provide electronic coverage of these proceedings, and ever since we've started to cover trials, we've been getting a tremendous amount of questions on little things like that you just went over, like rulings on evidentiary objections and stuff like that. One of the other things that I get questions on is people wonder why the court doesn't just let the attorneys and parties just sort of speak whenever they want to, why they break it down into phases, like opening statements, closing arguments, the case in chief for both sides. And I get a lot of questions on why, because both of the trials that we've covered so far, the defense didn't even present a case in chief at all. Any insight you could provide is really helpful. And I think it's because most of the viewers watch shows like maybe Judge Judy or the People's Court, and they don't understand, because I don't know if you've seen any of our trial coverage, but we don't just we don't edit it, we put the whole entire thing up. And it's just very different, and people don't really understand what the point is behind the formalities.
Okay. Well, trials in real life are vastly different than the trials you'll see on TV or in the movies. Those trials obviously are very sensational, and there's a sense of drama that they insert into those fiction. In real life, trials move much more slowly, and there's a pace, there's a format also that has to be adhered to. The first stage is voir dire, and that's when the attorneys ask questions and the judge asks questions of potential jurors. And from those questions and the answers that are given, you select your jury, 12 people, and 2 alternates. And from there, trial proceeds to opening statements, and then evidence by the prosecution or the plaintiff. And then if the defense has some witnesses to call after the state or the plaintiff has rested, then the defense proceeds to call witnesses and make argument. At the end, you have the jury instructions, which the judge reads to the jury, instructions on the law, and then the parties make their closing arguments. And it's necessary to have these stages in a trial. Otherwise, it would be just simply chaos. You have to have, and because the plaintiff or the prosecution has the burden of proof in a trial, they always go first, and then the defense goes second with whatever witnesses or evidence they're going to produce and present to the jury. With criminal cases, the standard is different than in civil cases. It's much higher. It's the highest standard that we have in the law. It's called reasonable doubt, whereas civil is by preponderance of the evidence. So knowing this and applying the law as issues come up is one of the main functions in district court, and it's important to have a candidate who has that trial experience.
One of the things that you mentioned was the jury instructions. I actually remember the first time we published our first trial, we almost edited out the jury instruction area because we thought it would be too boring. We ended up putting it up, and people were fascinated, absolutely fascinated by the process of putting together the jury instructions. And one of the things that came up was the sensitivity to a decision being overturned on appeal if the jury instructions were, I guess, put together incorrectly. Is that something that you've experienced? Is there more of a sensitivity to a decision being overturned when there's an error in a jury instruction, or is it kind of just the same as any other error?
Well, errors are errors, and obviously the parties and the judge tries to avoid errors being made as much as possible. As far as one error being more egregious than another, I can't really speak to that. There are certainly some errors that are made that almost automatically are a basis for reversal. There's a thing called cumulative error as well, where there are so many little errors that are made that, taken together, the cumulative effect shows that there was an unfair trial. And then the parties get to do it again.
So before we sign off, I wanted to ask just a general question: is what is your experience with regards to how the court's handling proceedings now with the coronavirus? And I don't know, you could really take this question any way you want, but there's apparently a lot of changes about what cases are being held and how they're holding them and the efficiency. I don't know, I mean, just kind of go into that, because I get a lot of questions lately on the coronavirus impact on the judiciary throughout the state.
Well, the coronavirus has changed everything about our way of life, including how cases are conducted. And it's been a real overhaul. This past couple weeks, the courts have made it so that we can appear telephonically or by Skype or BlueJean application. And it's encouraged that people in custody stay in a certain area at CCDC, at Clark County Detention Center, and appear via video conferencing in court. So it's a little eerie going to the courthouse these days. There's not a lot of people, and until this is all over, we're going to have these measures in place. And like everything else, we need to stay safe. And it's important that we, as a society, are consistent and we think of each other at this time. It's a tough time for everyone. My significant other, she's a registered nurse. She's an ICU nurse, and she's going through a tough time. She, along with all our healthcare providers, are heroes, and we need to think of them and make sure that they stay safe as well. So it's going to be a real test of how we, as a society, can get through this.
So I just want to remind everyone, you're running for Department 21, Clark County, District 8, and go ahead and let the viewers know how they can sort of find more information out about you, or maybe contact you if they want to ask any questions.
Sure. So I am running for District Court, Department 21, and you can reach me on my website, CesarAlmase4Judge.com. I'm also very active on Facebook and on Instagram to a lesser degree, so please stay in touch with me. With the coronavirus, everybody's campaigns are sort of on hold, and we're, I think, need to be very sensitive to what's happening. And like everybody else, my focus has been on the health crisis that we have. But please stay in touch with me and keep me in mind when it comes time to vote. Voting is going to be all mail-in ballots this year, given the crisis. So it's important for viewers and voters to learn about your candidates and participate.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's really appreciated, especially during these times.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate that.